this kinky shit. I'd like to try with you. I got some kinky shit. I'd like to try with you. I got some kinky shit.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Demystifying Gay Porn. My name is Ike Grande, and if you watch gay porn, I've definitely helped you get off. It is another episode of the Summer Sessions. I'm very happy to have my guest tonight on. We have been trying to get together and do a podcast for a good 6 to 8 months, and here we are. It is another macro episode with the owner and creator of giantsandtinyfeet.com. Ripper, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very, very, very well. I'm very happy to have you on the show.
It makes it sound like I've been avoiding you for 8 months. We've been trying so hard.
No, I know. Things come up. I get it,
And here we are.
Yeah. So can we talk about where you're based?
Yeah, sure. So I'm in Sydney, Australia. I have what I've been told, a Canadian accent, because people think that the Aussie and the American accent has kind of switched and melded together. I swear I'm Australian, but it's my A's and my R's that are just converted to American. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you're the furthest away interviewee that I've had on the show. So welcome. How is it down under?
It is cold. It is winter here, which I think you guys are in summer right now.
It's incredibly hot today.
It's storming, raining, and just really cold.
Okay. All right. Well, stay in. Stay in and talk to me for a little bit. I wanted to talk to you. We've had a couple of guests. One of the most important things I'd like to ask you first and foremost, because I am new to the idea and the fantasy of giant and tiny, more specifically defined, and I always do macrophilia, but a lot of people don't like the philia, like to be associated with the philia. So I hear size fetish, I hear size difference, size play. What do you call it?
I guess macro would be the best thing, but even though that kind of ties to like macro photography, so that's a whole other thing. But probably just macro.
Macro, yeah. I feel like that's the way I was introduced to it, other than macrophilia. But macro was the second way. It's a little broader, but I think it encompasses everything that we've spoken about on the podcast, and I guess what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, perfect. It kind of doesn't lead on that you're into size play, you're a tiny, you're a giant. It's kind of just everything in there. Yeah.
So let me talk to you a little bit about before, because you are the difference between you and my past guest is you are a content creator. You have a studio. You create content that is for people who are into macro or size fetish and size difference and size play. How do you define size play or macro?
So I've been making content for a while now with all the guys here in Australia. I would define macro as, well, depending on which ones you want to do. If you want to do a giant or you want to do the tiny, I would just say the shift in power between two people. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that whenever I get a new person and have to explain it to them about what this is, usually I fall back on just like, it's Ant-Man or it's Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and they just kind of run along with that. But I don't think a lot of them actually realize what the people want and what they get out of it. They just think, okay, there's fans of this, but they don't think too far into this person likes to be dominated, or they like to be lost and found, the kind of thing. It's way too broad.
So generally speaking, when you tell people, because I'm still one of those people too. Every time I talk to somebody, I find out something new. And a lot of the things that we've been speaking about via messages, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. This makes sense. So I guess it is very personal for every person, but then also for every person has, you find other people that are into the same thing almost, because there are people who are into gory stuff. There are people who are into like getting crushed and being picked up, and you had mentioned something about being cared for, that being something as well.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not even about the crushing. Sometimes it's just about being cared for. Someone finds you out in the in the wilderness and then picks you up and they take care of you. That's usually the easiest sell whenever I find someone to make content, is the nicer side of it. I never shoot darker stuff with that first shoot, because that will scare them off. Whenever I find someone, I'll do unaware. I think you've touched on that before. It's just that tiny person who is trying to get their attention, and that adventure that goes with that of avoiding their footfalls, or just climbing them just to get their attention, and then getting swatted off like a bug. And then during the second shoot, I'll introduce them to, I think you've touched on vor before, which is the eating aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Once we get into the vor part, that's certainly never something I'm going to bring up with someone for the first time and be like, can you film this as if you're eating the person? That's never going to be a thing.
Yeah, I can see that being a rough conversation to have.
Oh, and look, the majority of my people are straight. I don't look for that. It's just what happens. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I can't tell them that the people who are watching their videos want to be eaten by them. They want to see inside their mouths. They want to go through the whole body and then, I guess, come out the other end. But I certainly try and cater for as much as I can. Obviously, I don't hit everything, but I try and hit as many different targets for the fans as much as I can, because I'm into macro myself, so I need to make what I like, but I also need to push what I don't like as well, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad, but you can never get it all right. I mean, you would know that yourself. You're a content creator. You can't make everybody happy out there.
No, it'll never happen. You'll never please everyone. You're missing something at all times.
Oh yeah, and look, mine is usually he left his sock on too long, or he didn't remove his sock fast enough. The shoe didn't crush this, or the barefoot didn't crush that, and it happens all the time. And all you can do is just push it into the next one.
Before we get into the actual productions and everything, can I
Sure.
ask you how you realized that you were into macro?
Yeah, sure. I think it's pretty similar to everyone else that you've kind of interviewed. We all have these similar stories of going back to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids in the early 90s, or I think it was the late 80s. We watched them, and then suddenly we had that feeling of, this is awakening something in me. This is different. You're not just going into a movie and enjoying it just because it's a movie. You come out going, I think I like that kind of thing. I think my earliest memory was like probably primary school, which I don't know what that is in America. I think it's like first.
Okay, like grammar school.
Yeah. So
Okay.
so I think I had an orientation with like the high schoolers, and they all came to just give a glimpse of what the next phase was going to be like, and they were like double our size. Like they were huge. And then I remember looking up at all these guys and like, wow, okay, I think I like this size difference here. And then joined together with all the movies and the media and things that push out size difference, it just kind of latched on. And as I developed and explored it, I eventually found Coiled Fist, who you've talked about a lot. And from there, it was just an explosion of finding other people who were into it.
That's great that you brought it from a movie into reality, which is when you saw these guys who are bigger than you. A lot of times, because it is such a cerebral fantasy or something that is created in your head, or something that you can't really play out because, there are no 30-foot people in the world that we know of. But it's great because then for people that don't understand it, they can kind of, they can get something that they can see or look up to. And
I'm sure the people who made those movies didn't think that it was going to be a sexual awakening for people, but here we are.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I think that's so fascinating. There's so much stuff out there that's being created that other people do not know they're awakening something in people and creating a whole nother genre of porn without even realizing it. One question that I had was after, because I hear about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids afterwards, what can you point to as the next thing in media that was kind of like, oh wow, this is similar to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
I don't think I can pinpoint exactly what. I mean, size differences kind of played a role in a lot of mainstream movies and TV shows. I remember old reruns of Land of the Giants. That was always great. And there's always going to be another Gulliver's Travel that comes out. Like there'll be some kind of reboot or something. I think the biggest one was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It really was, and that had the unaware aspect. It certainly pushed that right the way through the film. I don't know if I can pinpoint it. Obviously, Marvel stuff right now is really pushing out.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've done The Boys recently, which was I'm sure someone on that set knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Even though, and this might interest you even more, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. Even though it is a woman in the role as the giant or the giantess running through the town, getting her husband, and yeah, it was that as well. Even though I identify as gay, that still did something for me, which is I guess interesting. That it even surprised myself that I even enjoyed that, and I don't know what it is. I think something about her torn clothes, and the rampage that she did going through the town, the swimming pool scene was really, really hot, and yeah, I think maybe that might be the next one.
You find out that you like size play or size difference, right? Or that before you know what macro is. When do you start? And I'm going to get to perspective later on, especially during when we're talking about your productions and stuff. But you identify as gay.
Yep. When
do you introduce macro into your personal sexual life?
Look, I mean, it certainly would have been after puberty. I would think I might have dabbled in like, obviously self-gratification. The gratification isn't the right word. Self-pleasure. Maybe pretty obviously going through my puberty. But I really don't think that I got into it as much until I found Coiled Fist. And then everything that you've seen before that was not made to get people off, but Coiled Fist was the first introduction of finding other people who got off to the same thing. So maybe I didn't see it in a sexual way until I found that website, and that was when I just turned 18.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's it.
What about relationships? What are relationships like for you when you have to, if you have to get to the point where you're like, okay, well, look, this is what's going to get me off?
I went on many dates, and unfortunately with much shorter people. I'm 6'4" myself,
okay.
So it's really hard to find someone who's taller than I am. I was on Grindr. I was sick of all these short people who were lovely. Some of them were lovely, some of them were horrible. And it's how it is with the dating world.
Yeah.
But I remember I'm like, now screw this. So I paid for the subscription fee. I think it's like a couple bucks per month. And I paid for the subscription fee to unlock the features to say 6 foot and over, and only find 6 foot and over people. Limited my pool down so much that there was only maybe a handful of people. And that's eventually where I found my partner now. But I remember the first date I went on with someone who was almost 7 foot. And that was so bizarre because I've always been the tallest one, which I hated. I hate my height. It was the first time that I was at the bar, and he leant over me to get the menu on the bar. And he's like, "Oh, excuse me," and he went over, and I was like, "Whoa, this is nice." So that was kind of the first time that I was like, "Oh, this is what I want. This is definitely what I want. I don't want shorter. I want this." And yeah, it's just been an exploration from there. It's creative. You have to use your imagination a fair bit. It's more, I guess, finding inspiration in stories, because there's a lot of writers out there who write this stuff. Sometimes I can't think of something that I would like, and then I'll just read a story, and it's exactly what I was feeling at that time, and it gets me there. It really does.
So like fan fiction.
Yeah, look, there are a lot of writers on writing.com, on Coiled Fist, on wherever you can find writing for size difference and macro. And I find those get me in the mood a lot more than sometimes maybe even visual stimulation.
You okay? So you're 6'4". Are you the tiny or the giant?
I'm the tiny. I prefer to be the tiny guy, which is annoying because I would much prefer to be 5'9" or something like that. But here I am at 6'4".
But you know, probably 6'4". So many people love 6'4".
I have people coming into my DMs all the time when they find that out, and they're like, "Hey, do you wanna crush me?" And I just say, "No, I don't."
So you're more so, or specifically, or predominantly a tiny.
Yeah, that's where I get my kicks. Look, occasionally I will switch, and I'll be like, for the right person, it has to be the right person. Look, I might role play with someone. Wherever, whatever social media or whatever platform I'm on, I might role play with someone if I know them well. But if it's a random person that comes into my DMs, no, certainly not going to do that. And I get them a fair bit. There's a lot of people who come in and try and message me about wanting to do stuff, and I just, no, I can't do that. Nothing is a bigger boner killer when someone tries to reverse your role that you prefer, and it just destroys it for you.
When you're the tiny and you're fantasizing about this, which one do you fall under?
I fall under the tiny, and my preference kind of shifts a fair bit. It might be gentle, it might be rough, it might be unaware, or it might go places I don't really think about too often. Sometimes the unfortunate scenario is kind of what I like a little bit more now. It's I can't even think of a good example right now. Say you shrink down, you're running along, your partner, you want to get their attention, you want to have fun with them, you're going to surprise them with how small you are, and then suddenly your friends walk in, and then that unfortunate of, oh God, what am I going to do now? And then what if they find you? And that fear kind of, I know it's kind of exciting a little bit. I just wrote a story. I think I saw a picture of a boot online, and it was just a boot seller, and the footwear looked fantastic. Like, they looked great. And I was like, you know what? I'll do a quick story about this. So I did a quick little story about office workers going out on a smoke break. And in this particular world, randomly people had shrunk like the flu kind of thing. It just happens. It's like a disease that people would just pass on to each other, and they just shrink to a centimeter tall. And it was about the dynamic of what the world would do to people like that. And obviously in this one, it's not a reality. It's people don't see the little people as people anymore. They see them as pests and bugs. And in this particular part, what got me more in writing this was I wrote this part where one guy stood up, the other guy sat down, and as the guy was sitting down, he saw a little person try and climb the boot of the person who stood up, and he was like banging on the side of the sole, and he's trying to get his attention, but he's not going to get anything. And the guy just kind of watches and doesn't tell him that there's a little person underneath him trying to get his attention and help. And that kind of thing there kind of it gets me. Yeah. And that excitement of this guy could just save him right now, but he doesn't. He just lets him go.
Yeah, that adds another perspective to it.
And then I don't personally like sinister endings, but I know people do, so then I just put a sinister ending. It was pretty horrific. It was the guy just bent down with his cigarette and just put it out on top of him, so It literally just burned him. And people liked it. I got a lot of likes on it. I got a couple of comments that people liked the way I was going with it, so I'll expand the little world that I created there.
Very nice. And it adds a total different perspective with someone else looking like it's someone else watching and letting it happen.
There is a fantastic little anime manga series that it's an online one, and it's about that, where everybody in the world shrinks, and it's horrific. Like this before they all come in randomly shrinking down, and this woman was giant, and all these people were underneath her in like a supermarket, and she was carrying like a pot of soup, and she before she shrinks, she drops the soup, and it just wipes them all out, and they all burn in this hot soup from the pan. It was ridiculous, but Jeez. It was so horrific. And then birds eat them, and it's just about how society would adapt to something like that when suddenly everything wants to kill them.
See, okay, so you're closer to this than I am when it comes to creating stories like that. I'm curious. I can't wrap my head around what would turn people on about that. Are you any closer than I am to figuring that out?
I think it's the excitement of the adventure that sometimes it's even the possibility of what could happen. and it doesn't happen. I don't know. It's really odd. And this is only one aspect of macro. This is the unaware, unfortunate aspect of it. Obviously, people want the giant to look down and see the tiny and rip their clothes off and just beat off to them. They want that. Obviously, they want that.
But they want the giant to be very good looking, though.
Oh, of course. And look, the amount of comments that people leave about how the giant in whatever movie is an ogre looking type thing, because they base it on mythology and cyclopses and things like that. They're all huge monster looking things, and yes, they obviously want a Calvin Klein model to be the giant.
One of the nicest ones I think I saw was Love, Death and Robots.
Yeah.
When the giant washed up ashore and he was just there. Yeah, that's one of the nicest portrayals of a giant that I've seen.
Yeah, someone on their staff must be into this, because there's a macro episode in every season. The first one was the little people in the freezer, that were on, and then the next one was up on the beach. I know a lot of people weren't very happy because it was a dead giant and then he started rotting. I don't think many people liked that, but I think part of it is the fantasy of knowing that he came from somewhere, that giant was alive somewhere else, which means there's another world out there where that giant was alive, looking not dead, looking beautiful. And I guess some of the fantasy would come to, what if you just jumped on a boat and went off and tried to find that world?
Yeah. And you can kind of walk around trying not to get stepped on the whole time. People would be in heaven.
That's it. A lot of people ask me, why feet? Why does it feet and giants? And most of it is because, if you are that small, the foot and the shoe is going to be the first thing that you're going to have to either avoid or the first thing that you're going to have to interact with. And I guess you could call macro an offset of the foot fetish community. Having said that, there are a lot of people who don't like feet. They don't want their macro videos to lean towards the foot side. They're very limited. Like, there's not a lot of people there, but it does exist. They just don't like feet.
Hands more, probably.
Hands, mouths, anything else. But occasionally I'll get someone who just says, "Why do you have to cater to feet so much? And can you do something else?"
One thing I've noticed too is, or that I haven't come across yet a lot, is I've seen feet, I've seen hands, I've seen giants. I haven't seen like giant dicks, giant asses. Like, I haven't seen any of that. Actually, wait, there was one. There was a short film I watched. Yeah. Where the guy has this little guy in a cage, and I think he puts him in his underwear.
Yeah, look, getting dangled above the waist strap of underwear and then getting dropped in and then the waistband snaps shut. That's a huge fetish for people.
Yeah.
Obviously the boys did it the most extreme that's ever happened. That gigantic penis that he just jumps into is something that I don't think has really been displayed in this fetish before. It's been talked about. It's been put in stories, but it's never been put visually before.
Yeah.
I guess I do wonder if writers in Hollywood maybe do a bit of research and then find out that this exists, and then they don't want to cater for it too much. They don't want to push or lean towards that.
Or you're right, somebody on set must know something and say, oh, these guys are going to go nuts for it. Don't go too gay, or don't go too this, or don't go too that.
Yeah, and I guess that's the beauty of, if they're not going to do it, then the amateur porn creators are going to do it. So it fills that little gap for especially macro fans. And
here you are, and your stuff looks beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it's the straight models that you get to come in and do these videos for your content. How is it? You spoke a little bit about talking to them or approaching them about a subject that they've never heard before.
Yeah, whenever I find someone, and it could be through a job listing or it could be through a model directory, if there's any exists, some of them list fetish work, which is perfect, because then I know I can contact them about it. And obviously they've never heard of it before. They've heard of foot fetish, which is, probably one of the most common things out there. They've never heard of macro before. I take them through it. I give them the very, very sweetened version of it. I tell them that fans like to imagine themselves this size, and I do little examples and stuff. And I might show them some previous videos, and then a lot of the times, once I get to that stage, like the hardest part is getting someone to say yes, they want to do it. What is this? And then I tell them. But a lot of the times, as soon as they find out, they're fine. They don't care. It's if anything, it's making them look huge and powerful, and they are absolutely okay to do that. Now, I know you're probably going to ask about the PG aspect.
Yeah,
they're not removing their clothes. They're not getting any dicks out or anything like that. They're not doing anything overtly sexual, and that's a-okay with them. A few of them have given me prices of if I ever wanted to go down that route, this is how much they're going to charge, and I can't afford that. But also, I just don't produce that content.
Yeah, that's not your thing. But what you're making is porn, right? PG porn, let's call it, that has the same outcome as you say as full-on porn would for other people.
I am not entirely sure at what point in my videos people get to their happy ending. I don't know exactly where it is, because the first thing I shoot with someone the first time is usually an unaware part where the tiny's on the floor. I'm manipulating the camera on the floor. It's all in point of view, and the guy walks in, sits down, takes his shoes off, takes his socks off, stretches, walks dangerously close, almost crushes them, might spot them for a brief second but dismiss them as a bug, and then at the very end puts everything back on and then walks off. The whole thing only goes for maybe about 8 minutes, 7 minutes maybe, and I know that people like it, and I don't know at what point. Maybe it's when the sock comes off, maybe it's when they almost step on, that kind of thing. But then I know there's a lot of people who don't like unaware content. They want the giant to see them. They want finger play. They want hands to come down and grab them. They want the toes to crush them. And then from that point on, I get into a little bit more involved acting wise from the guys. And unfortunately, a lot of my guys don't speak English.
Okay.
So telling them, imagine this camera is a little person, go from there. Sometimes I have to explain a bit more.
So you say the guys don't speak English. Where are they predominantly from?
Some of them, one guy in particular, who's probably he was one of my most popular ones at the time. He was from, I think, Argentina, and he'd only just come to Australia and started to learn English the week before I shot with him. And his English was pretty good, but I could tell that there were some barriers there. Okay. So I took him through it, and he got it, and people loved him. He I think he's a model now. He's off shooting fashion stuff right now, and he's doing his own thing. But he did a couple of macro videos and did very well. I think his mouth video, I did like a mouth exploration thing where he finds a tiny person and but teases to eating him, and people loved it. As soon as they see inside his mouth, they loved it.
Wow, isn't that crazy? I love that.
A lot of my guys have gone off to do other things. There's one guy right now who's big in China. He's like a TikToker / something. He's got a social media company working for him, and I'm just waiting for that email to say, can you please take all this down? He hasn't sent it yet. I still talk to him every now and then, and he's doing really well with millions of followers, but he crushed some cars, some little prop cars for me. He crushed little prop houses. He pretended to be a giant stomping around barefoot, and that's still out there.
What was it like going from a fan to paid content creator?
Scary. It was terrifying because I'd been part of the community for so long, and people knew who I was. So I had an established brand, and people knew my name. So, and I've been releasing like photoshopped manipulations of scenarios and stuff. And then it was kind of really rough for me work-wise in my day-to-day job. My boss wasn't paying me correctly, so I had to find something quick. So I thought, what if I meld what I like into a business? And luckily, a guy in Chicago you should look into his stuff, Chicago Footage, which is a great play on foot as well. He found some people in Sydney for me, and he paid me to shoot them, and I shot the content for him. And it was the first time that I'd ever shot someone like me myself went out and shot the content. I did a whole bunch of photos for him. They signed the contracts with him. I paid them from the money that he gave me, and then I thought this was really easy. I could do this. So then I used those exact 2 models as my first models. Went on from there. I think the very first person I found myself was a German guy who came to the shoot in the park. And he was just in a tank top, sweating in the Australian heat. And part of me was nervous about it. And then turns out he was one of the nicest people I could ever have started with. And yeah, a lot of my guys are German.
Okay.
German or Belgium, which is interesting. Australia is blessed with backpackers. We have so many people
who need money, right?
They need something quick.
Yeah.
They're here in Australia, and they do not care. They're fine to do anything. So yeah, I started shooting with him. He bought a friend. The next person I shot, I can't remember exactly who it was, but then they bought a friend. A lot of my guys come from recommendations now.
Okay.
Because it's so difficult. For every 50 lots of messages I send out to people looking for new models, I might get 10 replies back, and then from there maybe 2 actually sign on, because a lot of the times people think I'm a scam. There's a lot of interesting people on directories who are asking for very bizarre content to be made.
Okay.
And then here I am coming in, this stranger that just says, hey, I'm going to pay you if you could just let me take photos and video of your feet. and they just think, yeah, sure. And then when I actually pay them and they find out it's an actual job, suddenly they're like, oh, can we do this again?
Yeah.
Like, when's the next time that we can do this?
I'm sure because they're straight, they have girlfriends. And if they do have girlfriends, what is that like?
Occasionally they will bring their girlfriends to the shoots, and sometimes they won't tell me that they do this. The first time I did it, she came to the shoot. I knew she was coming, and I apologized. Look, I'm sorry, I can't offer you any work. It's just all about your boyfriend. And she's like, that's fine. So she just kind of sat to the side, and I was doing everything. I did maybe 5 to 6 videos in an hour, and got them all done. And she just sat there. She just watched. And then it wasn't until I got back to the editing suite that I looked at the footage, and she occasionally was in a couple of shots because it was wide angle, so you just could see her on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
She was probably giving me the most evil looks I could possibly imagine for someone. She was just staring me down in the back of my head. And look, everything was fine. Maybe she was just concerned that I was going to try something, and like I was going to do something, like I was going to touch her boyfriend or something.
Yeah, she probably thought it wasn't real either.
Yeah. And look, other times sometimes I'll even go through the girlfriend to get to the guy. I've contacted like job searches when it's just a couple that says we're looking for work, mm-hmm. and I'll contact them, but it's her who's running the account. And I'll be like, look, I'm so sorry, I can't offer you anything, but I would like to work with your partner. And a lot of the times they're like, sure, when do you want him? Like, what time? Like, where do you want him?
Ships him out. That's great.
And then one of my guys, he's in France right now. He said the only time I've shot a couple, it was a male and a female together. The only time I've ever shot them, I told him I didn't want to do it because I knew it was against my brand. But he said, oh, do you mind? She's really desperate for money. She's doing it tough. And I'm like, okay, sure, bring her in. And I thought I would have to explain it to her. I thought I would have to go through all the things about what this is. And I got there and I said, hi, this is what we're going to do. And then she just kind of stopped me and she goes, it's okay. I've sold my shoes and my socks before and foot pictures. I know what this is. And she just completely surprised me. She knew everything, and I didn't have to explain anything. I'm like, okay, great, perfect.
She's like, where do you want these? Where do you want these feet?
Yeah.
Great.
She just took her shoes off and she's like, okay, do you want me to rub his feet? Well, I'm like, go for it.
So you have this. So this is this fantasy, right? That can happen in real life. But what I'm curious about too is when you're shooting in public and outside. Do you get a lot
Yep.
of onlookers and people that ask, what is this for? And when you do, what do you say?
Most people will be looking. One of the boyfriends or girlfriends who came at the same time for the shoot, she was sitting next to me, like behind me, and he was the subject, so I was shooting him. And this guy walked over, and she was only maybe 5 feet from me. She wasn't that far. And this guy came over and then sat, and this entire park just sat right in between us. And I stopped filming and looked back and said, "You right, mate?" And he just kind of went, hmm. And I just stopped. I said, "Okay, we'll pause this for a second." And then he's like, "You're right." I went, "Yeah, you good?" And then he just stood up and walked off. Maybe he was just curious what we were doing. It's just odd. But the biggest one, how we all went through lockdowns. We all went through the pain of having to stay inside.
Mm-hmm.
This one person, I told him I'd like to shoot him in the park, and I got him there. It was the day before our official lockdown was meant to start, so we could not shoot after this day. And I'm shooting with him. And this particular shot, it's me down on the floor with my GoPro looking straight up at him, and he's raising his foot up high, kind of like he's about to step on the camera. And I noticed in the screen that he just went from a smile to like a worried panic look. And I just thought, oh gosh, I've gone too far. Maybe this isn't what he wants to film. And I was like, are you okay? Is something wrong? And he just goes, "There are cops behind you." And I sat up straight, I looked behind, and they were just walking right up to us and just said, "What are you guys doing here?" And I said, "Look, we're just filming and we're just hanging out." And they're like, "Don't let this happen tomorrow," because they were checking to make sure that people were not going to come out the next day because of the lockdown. I was stressed. It's $1,000 fine if you were out of lockdown without a good excuse. He was stressed because he was here on a visa and he was going to get deported back to Sweden, I think he was from. And it was just the biggest concern I've ever had while shooting outdoors in public. I was just so stressed. All I'm doing is taking photos of feet in public. It's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I can totally, there's always that one person that has to stop and say, "What is this for?" Or, "Hey, what's going on?"
There's been a few. There's just been a few random people who just ask, and I'll just say, "Look, I'm just hanging out with my friend here," and they're like, "Okay, great." And then they'll walk back over to the bench that they were on across from the park, and they'll just sit there and watch. I don't think any of the guys matter too much, unless it's the cops obviously coming up to us. But yeah, it's interesting that I can do it, and there's no problems with really people watching. I do wonder sometimes, because I use the same parks over and over again. I do wonder if people in the buildings actually look out and be like, "Oh, it's that foot guy filming again." I wonder if they do that. I did have some students come out. Like I must have been filming next to a university, and they just keep coming out at the same time every time that I was there. It must have been their lunch break or something. And they would just come out and they would make a couple of comments, and it was probably something along those lines of just seeing me there with another person filming their feet.
Do you ever have fans of your productions and your content find these models?
Yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes they will find them, on the street. Sometimes they'll find them online, or sometimes they'll find them on dating websites. Because a lot of them are straight, that's not really affection that they want to get in real life.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people have trouble separating the fantasy world from the real world. However, having said that, some of them absolutely do want to play with that, which I've warned them about them a couple of times, but they've gone off. There's a few of them have even started their own Instagram accounts, which
Interesting.
I gave them a good warning. I said, "Look, you're going to get all these questions. Everything that we film is a reflection of what they want, and you're going to get those questions direct." And some of them were fine with it, but I think we touched on it a little earlier. You run out of steam eventually. So these guys, 3 of them have started their own Instagram accounts, but they've kind of slowed off since then. They started strong, posting pictures, posting videos, posting even a couple of them had OnlyFans going, and I think they didn't realize how much work actually goes into it.
Absolutely.
So then they just paused. They just said, "Oh, look, I can't keep up. The messages just keep coming." And it was basically a welcome to my world kind of thing. Like, I hope that me doing this with a lot of these guys, also they get paid, they get financial stability with that. I get content that I can release to also do that. But I hope at the same time he does this and they don't make fun of it. They don't think it's stupid. They don't think that it's a weird thing that they're doing. They just treat it as a job and they show respect for it as well. I won't shoot with someone if they absolutely tear it to shreds, because a part of me dies inside when they do that. And they'll go off and they'll tell their friends, and they tell their family members, they tell their friends, their close circle. And sure, they think it's weird, but it's also expanding the world. It's expanding it to people who would never have thought about this before. And it's kind of nice. It's like I mentioned, a lot of my guys now come from recommendations because it's friends of friends who want to give it a go. And that's fantastic. I love, it makes my job so much easier when I get someone who has already been given the brief on what we do. And yeah, they come on in and they come in with an open mind, and they don't think anything of it when I tell them, pretend this camera is a little 3-inch person.
Are you familiar with Joshua Beaverhausen's work?
I am familiar with his hundreds and hundreds of videos on YouTube. Yes.
Yeah. How he must be working nonstop all the time.
I imagine he's glued to his phone or his laptop on YouTube just constantly. I like what he does. I like that he absolutely loves it when we talk about him as well. I know from the last one or the one before that, he got a mention and he loved it. He was so thankful for that. He's doing a service where he's not promoting like he's not promoting the fetish in a way that's like he's not really making money from it. He's just showing how influential it is in the media right now. He's just showing how much it is. I mean, a lot of it. And I know I see a lot of his comments. His comments on his YouTube page is usually just, "Where is this from? Where is this from?" Mm-hmm. And it's because like I haven't seen probably like 70% of the stuff that he posts on there. It completely misses me. So he is doing a massive service for the macro community, because he's showing off things that you miss. Like you can't look at macro, you can't look at giants on YouTube and get everything. You're going to miss stuff, and he manages to find it all. I don't know how his searches go.
Vast research is basically
like music videos, TV ads, anything in movies, things like that. He just finds them, and sometimes I'll see something macro related on YouTube, and I'm like, I wonder how long this will take him to find this. I'm sure it'll be in the next one.
I've actually gone into Instagram on Messenger, and I'll send him. Like there's some videos that I've seen and I'm like, oh wow, I wonder if he's checked this out. And then it'll be on the next compilation.
I will say amongst content creators, there is a sense of community just there. Mm-hmm. I don't speak to all of them. I would love to. If anyone listens to this, I would love to message and talk to you about anything. The ones that I do talk to, a lot of it is copyright infringement stuff. So we'll see our own videos on other websites where they're not meant to be. Oh. And we'll just message each other and be like, hey, yours is up here. And then they'll send me a message back maybe the next day and be like, yours is up here. And then we have to go in and do the takedown requests.
Wow. Okay. That's so awesome.
That does happen. That does happen a fair bit. And because it's so niche, we it's not something so grand that we're going to miss it. It's something so niche that we're always looking for each other's content on other websites to make sure that we can take it down. There's really no problem if someone puts up a preview video for free. That's fine. It's just the full content. I've done so many hours of editing in a video, and I put it up on my website, and within a day it was on a website for free. And I was so my motivation was gone to continue that series. I was just like, what's the point? And I looked at the views, and I think it was like 1,200 views already. And I was just like, well, all those people just got it for free, kind of thing. Yeah. Like, what's the point? And it just kills your motivation completely. I get where they're coming from. And I know that sounds weird, but I get where they're coming from. I get that they've bought their content, so it's their content that they have now. I really should put disclaimers on the videos, but I don't mind people enjoying it. I know people share content between themselves. I've seen it all the time. One guy shared a Google Drive with someone else, and then they put the link up publicly. So I clicked on it, and then I saw 30 videos of mine on there.
Jesus.
So like, and I know that they're just sharing it because they've purchased it, and then someone else has purchased some other video that they like. So they just trade the videos between themselves. Unfortunately, that means two people see your video and only one person has paid for it. I also know I'm not in this business to make as much money as I can. I'm in this business to provide happiness, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not overly concerned about it. It's annoying, and I'll try and take them down as much as I can. But at the end of the day, you're seeing two people that are enjoying your content, which is also really, really nice.
But in order to keep making this content,
you need to be a little rough with them, and you have to take it down.
It's a double-edged sword for real. And it's not like you're this giant studio, no pun, but giant studio in California with millions of dollars that can afford to take the loss. It's yeah. Some
videos I'll barely make money on. Some models I'll barely make money on. There was one guy who just kept coming back, and he was going through a really rough patch, and his videos weren't selling. They weren't doing anything, but I kept bringing him back in because he was such a nice guy. I know that over time they'll make their money back. Like he sold a video yesterday, and I haven't filmed him since 2020, and he just sold a whole bunch. Like someone found him and then bought everything, which is great. But yeah, it's not a get rich scheme, that's for sure. But there's risk involved, like paying for the hotel rooms, paying for the equipment, paying for the model, and all models are different. They all charge different prices, and yeah, right now I'm trying to use escorts a lot more because they're a little bit more professional.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pay that premium, and it's a lot. It's the hourly rate, and it's sometimes 3 to 4 times more than what I would pay sometimes even my best performing model right now. Mm-hmm. And he might have just been a recommendation, and he does sometimes even triple what an escort will do. But you have to keep it fresh. You have to get as many people as possible. You have to get anyone that says yes. The unfortunate thing with my guys is I get a lot of comments that I don't have enough diversity in my models, and I have to keep replying saying I can literally only do who says yes.
Yeah,
I can't. I don't turn anyone away because they say yes, and I don't say I don't look at them and be like, no, I don't want to shoot with you. Sometimes I just have to take whoever is saying yes, and a lot of the times it's German guys.
You had posted something just recently.
Yeah,
that was kind of, well, it was helpful. It was regarding fatigue when it comes to content, for instance, visual content of macro stuff.
Personal fatigue.
Personal fatigue of watching. Visual fatigue, let's say.
Oh, you've done your research. You've been looking into this.
Yeah,
look at you creeping in there.
Well, I found that very interesting because I also, it's different fields, but I feel like not fields, but it's different. It's like you said, you're doing PG porn. I'm doing gay porn that's predominantly intercourse. I feel like people are getting fatigued at stuff. So when I heard about you commenting on that, I was like, oh, I have to ask him about that because I'm curious. So it's not just plain old intercourse fatigue. People can get fatigued from looking at way too much stuff, let's say, overstimulation.
There is a point where you go in waves of liking what you're doing, enjoying it, and I think I'm now releasing 3 videos a week, and it's a lot. It's a lot to keep pumping them out, and I think I'm one of the only regular guys who are pumping out macro videos at the moment. Obviously, there are many other content creators, but I'm trying to get at least 3 out a week, and that's just to keep the attention span. But there is a point where you don't enjoy what you're shooting in the moment, and I can get an attractive guy in here, and he'll be playing a giant, and it's exactly what I like, And some people ask me this all the time. They always ask, how do I contain myself when filming something that they know that I enjoy? Your brain switches off. You think about the hours of editing that are going to go into this further on. You're thinking about the camera angles. You're thinking about the cuts. Suddenly, you're not an observer anymore. You're not enjoying this content as much as you could, and you're always looking for new ways of making this interesting, new technology, new angles, new ways of transitioning, new effects. And yeah, eventually it does kind of grind at you a fair bit. I think I've been like really, really active with this since 2017 now. And it does start to wear you out. The amount of people who you have to get coming in, like I've got someone coming in tomorrow. I haven't written a single thing for him yet. I just mentally, I'm not there to write whatever the next thing is going to be that people are going to enjoy and love. I have another person coming in on Friday, and same thing. I just don't know what I can do with them. There is a bit of a serious note happening with, especially the macro community, where cash masters are trying to get in on this. They're people who are on OnlyFans, or they have a clips for sale site, or they have their own websites, and all they do is put the camera on the floor looking directly up in a point of view, and they say, look at me, I'm a giant. And they'll just come in on the forum and they'll make a post and say, you guys should worship me, but then they'll never be seen again. They'll just disappear. And it kind of, that's a loss of sale right there. Someone sees this gorgeous guy who comes in, only makes one video for the macro community, and then everyone just rushes to them, and then they'll never come back. That's it. They weren't into this. They have no respect for macro. Having said that, there are a lot of people who do have a lot of respect for macro, and some of them have come in and found it and made a lot of content. But there's a lot of people who are trying to cash in on it as well. I don't like to be seen as that person. I don't like to be seen as the person who's trying to make a buck out of this. Obviously I am, but I try and keep it so low. I know a lot of people right now are doing, I think it's almost $2 or $3 a minute for their videos. And, if you have a 10-minute video, that's a really expensive porn video, especially for an amateur stuff. So I try and come in at under a dollar a minute. And if it's 6 minutes in length, then I'll charge $4.50 kind of thing. Like, I'm trying to be cheap and alternative, but it's really difficult when a new person comes in and the motivation is drained when someone else comes in and says, here's a $30 video, and I'm just going to put it out there, and it's just him jerking off over the camera, and that's it.
Yeah. I have my own gripe with the fan sites taking, because the same thing is happening in porn. You're talking about people coming in and trying to make money off of it, especially if they're not into macro. I think what happens though too, or what will happen, is it gets weeded out because people don't realize how much work actually goes into it. You're grinding, you're working, you just so happen to be doing something that you really, really enjoy and have become the intermediary, let's say, between the observer, which you were, like you're providing the content now, and it's a very different thing. I same thing, I've been around beautiful men for the past 15 years, and I'm not sitting there. I've probably gotten hard. I can count on both hands how many times on set, because I'm not there for that. That's not my job. Is to capture something and then put it up and make people happy with it. So
of course.
Same thing with you. Absolutely.
It's a lot. There are a lot of content creators out there, and there's a lot of people who do what I do as well. I can name heaps of them. They know who they are. They're probably going to be listening to this as well. They were fans. They switched over and they make content. Some of them go a little bit more extreme than what I do. And some of them are charging, you charge whatever you want for your videos. It's fine. And they're fantastic at what they do. And it's just, it does get a little horrible when people start to come in and they have absolutely no idea what they're doing, and they kind of take away from that. And
giantsandtinyfeet.com, right?
Yes.
you do 3 updates a week?
Yes, I'm trying to push out 3 videos a week. Right now, I'm doing a new series with a new model, and it's a 3-part series, so which fits perfectly in the Monday, Wednesday, Friday time slots.
Yeah, that's perfect. And your videos usually are, you said you go between, because I can imagine putting this together. Oh, well, first and foremost, the switch from being an observer to a content creator, you became your own studio. So did you know editing beforehand?
Yeah, I come from an advertising background, so
Okay.
I had everything. I had Final Cut. I have my cameras. All the setup was already here. What's perfect is that it's all a tax deduction. I love it. I love it when the new camera comes out, and then I have to go to the accountant and I'd be like, "Hey, so this is for my work." I just don't tell him what work it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great to have it all ready to go. I had all the mains where I've got a green screen here that I used for my regular work, and I'm like, I could just put people on this and make little people in the green screen.
Yeah.
A lot of the times my content is point of view. I don't think I specialize in it, but I certainly go towards point of view stuff, not because it's just the easiest thing to edit, but the way cameras are going right now with the wide angle, it's exactly what people want to see. They want to feel like they're there in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is VR cameras. Wow, that opened up a whole new market.
So you're working with VR cameras as well.
Yeah, I've got a couple out right now, and it literally puts them in the video. I mean, the camera will just be on the floor. I'll tell a guy, can you just walk around it, like stomp down over it kind of thing, and then eventually find them, pick them up, put them in a shoe, put them in a pocket, put them in your hand, and they are the little person in that video clip.
Wow.
It kind of adds that little bit of I guess not so much a personal touch, but it certainly puts them in there. I've done a few. They're a bitch to edit, but yeah, then it's just a great way of getting the fans into the videos a little bit better.
When people want to find you, when people want to see Giants and Tiny Feet, where do they go? Social media, all that stuff.
Yeah, sure. So the main website is giantsandtinyfeet.com. That also has contact forms and everything in there. I'm on Instagram at giant_and_tiny, and I think I've got a fair amount of followers on there now. It just keeps growing over time, which is nice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are the 2 main places that people can find me, and obviously Coiled Fist.
Guys, this is Demystifying Gay Porn. We're on every podcast directory. We're on YouTube. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're everywhere and anywhere people will let us be. And our guest this week was Ripper from giantsandtinyfeet.com. If you like macro stuff, if you are interested in macro stuff, size play, if you're interested in general in seeing what he's all about, please go on this website, giantsandtinyfeet.com. Again, my name is Ike Grande, and if you watch gay porn, I've definitely helped you get off. Cheers.
I got this kinky shit I'd like to try with you.